Welcome back. So what I'm going to be doing is a painting of Dudley Castle by Turner. So this is the image I'm going to be using. He actually used watercolours with gum arabic, and so I'm going to do pretty much the same. Okay, so let's get started. If you want to, you could download the picture and trace it, whichever's easiest for you. So I've drawn mine out ready. So remember, with watercolour we want to make sure that the pencil's light, so we don't want it too heavy. Okay, just juggle my things around. Right, so this is going to be my impression. Obviously it's not going to be as good as the masters. The colours I'm using are the ultramarine, I've got some burnt sienna, raw sienna, or you could use yellow ochre, light red and burnt umber. I'm not going to put any masking fluid on my painting because I can easily lift it out with the gum arabic in the mixture. Right, I've got my tissue ready so I can lift out, and I've also got my gum arabic for this to use, which I've put in a little pot as I did in the previous demonstration. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up my lightest colours first. So I'm going to go for the raw sienna, and I'm going to do wet in wet to begin with all over. So if I get my colours ready first, okay. I'm going to use a bit of light red as well because there's a lot of orange in this picture. So when you use wet in wet, you need to get your colours pre-mixed up because you're just going to be dropping them in to your painting. Okay. Right, I want a bit of a darker colour as well, so I'm going to use the burnt umber, which is a very dark brown, and then I'm going to mix that with my ultramarine to get a nice dark colour to drop in. Right then, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wet all of my paper all over. So I'm just going to go backwards and forwards all over. So I'm working on a tilt at the moment, but I will be picking it up at some point just to shimmy the colours along. Don't be afraid to pick your board up and tilt it. Encourage the colours where you want them to go. So that's all nice and damp. We don't want it soaking wet, but we don't want it too dry either. Right, I'm still going to use the large brush. Dip my brush into the gum arabic. Okay, I'm just going to go all over. It's nice and light. I can still see my drawing underneath. And because it's quite nice and warm, hopefully this will dry fairly quickly, so I can show you how to do the washes on top, the dry washes. Right, so I'm just going to move into my light red colours. And pop those on where I feel the more dominant. So this is the water down here with the canal. Can you see it's not so easily all over the place? Whereas with watercolour on its own, it'd be running everywhere by now. Okay. So if I just clean my brush, I'm just going to get a smaller, still a large brush, but a smaller one, a round brush. And I'm just going to go in with those dark colours. Again, dipping my brush in the gum arabic first. I'm just going to pop some of these on. I'm just going to add a little bit more brown to that. It's come out rather dark. Get a tissue, take that off. See how easily it comes off with the gum arabic. Thank goodness for that. Okay, I'll go back in again. Pop this on. Now it is bleeding a little bit round there. And remember, with watercolour on its own, without the gum arabic, it'd be bleeding quite a bit now. So I'm just going to take some of that colour and just take that across there. I'm going to fill all that in because I know I can lift out quite easily afterwards. So I'm just looking where else I can put this darker colour. There's also some greens around there. I can use my raw sienna just to pop those on as well. Then we've got the castle right at the top. It's very faint in his photograph, his painting. But we have got some greenery there. Figures on the boats. Okay. So again, I'm just going back on top. With my gum arabic in the mixture as well. Now this is drying quite quick. So I'm going to go back with my light red, put some of these on. I've got a bit of burnt sienna. Make sure that you keep putting your brush back into the gum arabic. got some smog up there. Okay, so I'm just going to go into these buildings. Again, I'm not worrying about my windows because I can take those out later. And our poor castle has disappeared somewhere, so we need to bring that back a bit. Again, still using my larger brush at this present moment. Just pop that back in. And the same thing with watercolour. You can blend it in. So this is just damp water on my brush now. You'd think it was such an easy painting to do. You start something and then you keep seeing more colours appearing. And he fades that off just there. So we can fade that off as well, just a bit of water, we'll just rub that in there, just to fade it. At least the castle's coming to life anyway, we can see it now. So I'm mixing up my green out of the blue and the yellow, same mixture as before. Okay. So whenever you're painting, make sure, I can't say this enough, keep looking at your photograph or what you're working from. Spend more time doing that than looking at your painting. Alright, let's get some more of that raw sienna, or umber rather. So I'm just building it up a little bit more now. And then you can start to put a little bit more on the water. So what I'm going to do is start to paint down for the reflections, and we'll go across afterwards. Look like quite a romantic place. The way he's painted it, but we know it's not an easy time for people. Okay, so just start to fill some of these in on the boat. So again, still using the larger brush. Just move some of those down for the reflections. So I'm mixing my colours up and then popping my brush into the gum arabic before painting onto the paper. A little bit there. There's so much detail in this painting, which you'll all find when you have a go at it. This is my impression. It's not going to be perfect, but it's my impression of it. Right, that's starting to come together lovely. Okay, so I need to put a bit more in with the boats. I just don't want to lose my little people there. I might have to transfer to a smaller size brush. So I always think it's like decorating at home. If you're painting a large wall, you wouldn't use a little brush. You'd use a bigger brush. If you wanted to do some decorating where you needed to get little lines in, smaller lines rather, you would use a smaller brush. So if you keep that in mind, you can't really go wrong with using which size to use. These are my canal boats. And I'll just put my little people in there. A couple here as well. And I think that we have a little horse. Okay. I think we're nearly done now. Thing is, you keep seeing things all the time when you're painting. You keep seeing different colours suddenly pop out. Right then, I'm going to stop messing. I'm going to start lifting out now. Clean water. I'm using a flat brush now because I want to do some angles on the buildings and really pull those out. So I'm not using gum arabic now. So this is, yeah, that's more or less dry. So I'm just going to take that off. I just need to bring this castle out a little bit more. Can you see just how that has all just nicely lifted out? Perfect. It's quite fun actually to use the gum arabic, that you can lift out so easily. Don't forget as well, once you've taken the colour off, it's going to be in your brush, so you need to clean it. Otherwise, the colour you've taken off and then you paint somewhere else or try to take paint off somewhere else, it's going to go right back on again. Now I did have a church there which has disappeared. I need to put that back in. Spiral. This is why I'm using the flat brush. Hopefully it all makes sense now. It's so beautiful the way it just comes straight off. It's quite delicious. Can you see how easy that is? A little window here as well. Look at that. It's magical. I love it. I've got to say, I do like gum Arabic. Let's just square it off. A bit wonky. Right, so that's going to be reflected into the water as well, the light. Just take some of that out. I think it might be a bit too wet down there. Don't worry if you think, oh no, that window's far too big. That's fine, we can paint that in afterwards. In fact, I want to put a little bit of a glow in there. So I'm going to put some yellow in. That's better. Put some yellow down there. Okay, so I'm just going to tidy up some of these edges. So now it looks more like a building. That's better. So all I've done there is just a damp brush just to blend it over. Okay, we got some buildings going on up there as well, just fading off. You can just imagine going up the canal up to there. Okay, we've actually got a chimney there. I don't know where that went, I think it's there actually. Let's just pop that on. And we've got a little house that's disappeared as well. So again, I'm using the gum Arabic in the mixture. Okay, I'm just going to use a flat brush just to top that off there. Perfect. Well, that's still wet now, so I'm just going to leave it a little bit. Let's just bring some of that light in as well. It is a lot easier once the paper's dried rather than attempting to do it while it's wet. Okay, this is still quite wet round here, that's why I've been avoiding it a bit. It's just, I might be able to do a little bit down here. So you've got a window there. I'll just take out the window. So you might think, well, why didn't you mask it all first? Why are you spending so much time taking it out? Well, I do like the effect of watercolour, the wet in wet, the way it bleeds. I didn't have to tilt my board in the end, but you can if you want to, if it makes it easier for you. So it's about what works for you. I can show you the techniques, but at the end of the day, it's got to be something that you're comfortable with. Okay, let's just take some of these out as well. It's almost like I'm going to go for a smaller round brush now. I like the round brushes because you get quite a nice point. And at the moment it's loaded with paint. Let's just, I don't know what those are up there, what he was seeing. Isn't it wonderful how Turner came to Dudley and painted? Okay, I'm just going to damp brush now. I'm just going to blend that in. So similar techniques to what you do anyway with watercolour. I just want to put some lines back in. That's the only downside with wet and wet. It can all become a bit, whoa, we don't know what we're looking at. And you have to add those horizontal lines back in. Just going to go in here and just put a little bit of shadow on some of these. A bit more green as well. We can see the castle now. Again, just a damp brush. I wanted some smog, some smoke coming out of there. Rub with clean water on your brush. Look at that. Just comes off beautifully. Okay, so I'm going to go onto a smaller brush now. Round brush again. I just want to lift a little bit of light in that window. Oh, to have a steady hand. That's better. So as I was saying before, if you think, oh, the window's going a bit big now, you can always just paint back round it, not a problem. And then just blend that in a bit. That's better. Alright, so I've got my smaller brush so I can lift out. Again, just the clean water. Just lift out here for my men. Just put his hat on. So you'll have a lot more time than me to do this. So yours will be so much better. I always think that figures just give a little bit of interest to a painting. Here we go. don't forget to always connect your figures to the floor. So we've got some lines here going up. Let me just put those back on. And that'll take the eye up. There we go, we've got a horizontal line there. So these lines are really important just to bring the painting together. So this would be your dry brush work. So the painting's dry now. And what you're doing is just going back over it, just adding little bits of detail where you want it. I think this was the colliery just here. I'm just going to slim these down a bit, look a bit dominant in the painting. Just blend that line in. You'll also find as well, working with gum arabic, the brush seems to feel a little bit sticky. So you can see why they use it to put on the brushes when they're brand new for transit. So it binds them together. And just add a little bit of shadow there, just for the top of the castle. Right, that's still wet round there unfortunately, because I wanted to put Little Moon on. Let's just have a go. There's a man standing there. So that's all you need for a person, just a dot, some sticks, some legs to stand on. It always helps. He's standing right at the front. Brave man. Our window's gone haywire, hasn't it? Let's just tap that. gone even smaller with my brush now. That's the one thing is when you're painting you can see the paint marks, and if you keep painting on top it starts to take the paint off. Right, let's do a few little parts going across, and then I think we're more or less done. Just a little bit more on that boat there. I want to leave it with just lines. That doesn't look good. Once you start to examine the painting, when you've printed it off yourselves, you'll see just quite how much detail is actually in the picture, and it just doesn't look like it when you first look at it. There's so much. Now Sherry spent a lot longer than I am capturing it all. Right, flat brush. We're going to go across to put some ripples on there. Okay, gum Arabic. Burnt sienna. I'm just going to go across. That's a bit of a big blob. So I'm just going to blend that in a bit more. That's better. So I'm just using a damp brush now, just to add that on. So that breaks it up a lot better. So a bit more damp water on there. I'm just going to take some of that down. Make sure it goes smaller off into the distance. Remember, if you're not happy with it, I've just gone over my little boat there. If you're not happy with it, you can always lift out again afterwards. So don't despair. Okay, I'm just going to go to my smaller flat brush now. So I want to add some of those dark ripples. Just up here. I'm going to go across. Take that over to the boat. Okay, we can always take out parts if we want to. Just drag it lightly over the top. It's got a nice effect. So I've just broken up some of those, and what you can do is just take some of those just across. Okay, so I have a go at it, and it is really quite fun using the gum arabic. It's a different technique,